everybody, my name is Elise Nichols. I'm the coordinator of Speak. Speak is a local coalition working towards preventing youth substance use. And today I'm joined by Kassandre. Kassandre, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Kassandre Alexander. I'm the school health coordinator for the St. Clair County Health Department, and I'm the school nurse in the Yale Public Schools.
Thank you, Kassandre, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you had joined us in September of 2020 for a vaping summit. And, it's a huge issue, not only in our own community, but all over the country. There's been an explosion of a lot of young people using vapes. And can you just walk us through what are some of the short-term and long-term effects that can happen from using vapes?
So the thing about vaping is that we really don't have a lot of data on the effects. We know that it's harmful. And we know this because a couple of years ago, we had a whole kind of string of what were called vaping related illnesses. So people who were having lung damage and were in some cases needing to be put on ventilators. And so we know that the vaping was the one thing that they had in common. So we know that vaping is unhealthy. And we also know just kind of logically that the lungs are intended to breathe only one thing, and that's clean air. Our lungs really are not intended to inhale particles or substances of any kind, with the rare exception of certain prescription medications, which have been studied and have a lot of data to support their safety. Vaping is something that is fairly new, and so we're sort of learning as we go. We know that because most vaping involves nicotine, we can say for sure that the effects of nicotine can have very harmful effects on the body. We know that it affects the circulatory system, raises blood pressure, it constricts the blood vessels, it makes them tighten up. And so that makes the heart beat faster and stronger to try to pump blood through these really narrow blood vessels. And that puts a lot of strain on the heart. We know that nicotine also affects the flow of oxygen to the brain. And when nicotine is being used, especially by adolescents, we know that it can have long-term and even permanent changes in the structure of the brain, the part that involves like decision-making and impulse control. So as far as the short-term effects, vaping is believed to be an inflammatory substance, the vapor that is produced. So it causes inflammation of the lungs. This causes damage and irritation to the airways that can affect the ability of the lungs to pass air through. It can cause changes in the way the mucus moves through the lungs, making it more difficult. And that can cause kind of asthma-like symptoms. So the airway tightens up, it can make it difficult to breathe, it can make people cough, and it can have even like effects of, causing damage to the cells that line the throat, the mouth, and the lungs. In the long term, we think that vaping, because of that inflammation that it causes, and because we know that long-term inflammation to the lungs can be harmful, we think that vaping could have some of the same effects as smoking. So it can cause an increase in heart disease risk for emphysema or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and it may even increase the risk of cancers.
Wow. So let's just debunk some myths right now, because I've heard different things from our teens and even from friends. Like a lot of young adults are using these things as well. A lot of people have said to me, well, vapes are harmless. There's just water vapor in them. Yeah, it's fine. Can we debunk that myth right now?
Yeah. Well, it's just blatantly not true. I mean, it's pretty easy for scientists to collect some of the vapor that comes off of a vaping product and analyze it, and they can see that it contains nicotine. It contains the ingredients that are found in like vaping liquids, vegetable glycerin, polyethylene glycol, some of the same ingredients that are found in antifreeze are found in vaping liquid and vapor. It can contain formaldehyde, which is a substance used to embalm bodies during the embalming process and to preserve human tissues and organs. And it can contain heavy metals like lead and mercury and cadmium, which we know to be poisonous and toxic to the body. So it's much more than water vapor. And that whole narrative of vapor being just water particles was just a marketing tool that was concocted by the companies that make these substances, not unlike some of the tactics that were used by the tobacco industry before the federal government stepped in and said, you can't say these things, they're not true. So we're getting to the point where the government is starting to regulate more aspects of the vaping industry, but at this point, they can pretty much say whatever they want, true or not.
So you talked about this kind of similarity between vaping and traditional cigarettes. That's another question I hear a lot. So what's the difference between the two? And is vaping healthier to do versus traditional cigarettes?
Well, there's clearly differences. One of the main differences is that cigarettes are burned. They're lit on fire and burned. And that is one of the things that makes cigarettes particularly dangerous. When something is lit on fire and burned, it produces tar and smoke, and it also produces something called carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas that competes for space with oxygen in the body. It's the reason why we were taught as kids to, never let the car run in the garage with the door shut, because carbon monoxide is deadly to our bodies. So that's produced when someone lights a cigarette or anything is lit on fire and breathed in. And some people claim that because vaping doesn't involve actually lighting anything on fire or something burning, that is inherently safer. But vaping does involve making something very hot, which changes its physical state from a liquid into a vapor. And when it does that, it changes the way it affects the body. So it's not harmless. The truth is, we don't know whether vaping is safer than smoking. What we do know is that in an adolescent in particular, who neither smokes nor vapes, the safest option is to do neither, because we know that not vaping is better than vaping. So whether vaping is safer than cigarettes, there's question about that. We don't know the answer, truthfully, but we know that not vaping is definitely safer than vaping.
Sure. And so I guess if there's a teen watching right now, or maybe a young person who's watching who has a friend who vapes and who's struggling with quitting and is interested in doing that, can you just rattle off a couple of resources? We can put some at the end as well, but
yeah,
a couple off the top of your head that people could reach out to.
There's a lot of resources online for helping people to quit a lot of different substances, including smoking. A lot of the techniques that are used to help people quit smoking cigarettes are very effective in helping people to quit vaping. The SAMHSA, which is a part of the government, it's spelled SAMHSA. They are a substance abuse and mental health agency of the federal government, and they have a ton of different resources and links on their website. Another very popular, in Michigan at least, a very popular tool is the Michigan Helpline for Quitting Smoking. All of their resources are free. A lot of people qualify for additional resources based on their income level or their age. And all of these things can be obtained online, at least information. And because of COVID, a lot of the services are actually online now instead of in person. So they're very readily accessible and they're almost all free.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for being here today. I just want to thank Kassandre for being here. And if anybody has any questions, please DM us, or you can also comment down below with any questions. But thank you again. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.